Hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. A busy weekend for South Africans across the country, all around the provinces of South Africa. What the heck? Well, what the heck is going on? Oh no. Eskom's a push, not load shedding again. Oh my goodness. Let's get the torch out. Good Lord. Can you believe it? Load shedding is back. I had no idea that was coming so soon. My goodness. Wow. Oh, we could play campfire stories here. Ooh, tell ghost stories. Wow. Man, load shedding again in South Africa. Who would have thought, folks? Who would have thought load shedding? Oh, the power's back. Woo, wow.
Welcome back once again. This is Chris Report, and he assured me that St. Simon's Town in Boulders. Folks, this is Chris Wyatt reporting from South Africa.
That was short-lived, unlike for most South Africans who are experiencing load shedding once again this weekend. South Africans woke to yet another abysmal governance letdown on Friday as the following headline made the news. Load shedding returns for the weekend after a 10-month respite. Now, Eskom announced that stage 3 load shedding would start at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 31st of January 2025, and would be expected to last the weekend as the power utility seeks to return a number of units back into service. Unplanned outages increased to 13.3 megawatts, while planned maintenance took 6.2 megawatts out of the system. It's increasingly difficult to find accurate information regarding installed Eskom electricity generation capacity. I'm finding sources with various information anywhere from 42 gigawatts to 63 gigawatts, but many of them are intentionally biased either for or against Eskom and the African National Congress. So assuming a reasonable, reliable figure of 50 gigawatts of installed capacity, the loss of nearly 20 gigawatts of electricity is a 40% reduction in available power. I often ask you, do you want a 35% math student designing your bridges? How about, do you expect a company to survive if 40% of its capacity is consistently unavailable? Imagine that. You can't deliver 40% of the time? That's not going to be a business that makes money. Energy Minister Kojisenso Ramakopa claimed that the return of load shedding is because Eskom was hit with a perfect storm. He said, we had units out for planned maintenance, duh, and then there were unit failures at Matimba and Letabo power stations. For most of the week, we had to rely on open cycle gas turbines. We had to rely on diesel. We exhausted our reserves. Now, given the recent history of load shedding in South Africa, how do you not have sufficient diesel reserves for an extended period or on-demand contracts for delivery within 3 hours? I mean, what kind of Mickey Mouse operation is Eskom running here? The reliance on reserves was occasioned by the failure of units which are expected to come back into service at the weekend and the beginning of next week, he said. So how long did you rely on those diesel reserves? Does Eskom expect us to believe there was no time for a top-off? You couldn't get more diesel? Obviously, you ran off it for several days. Now, the Eskom head of generation, Becky Noxmolo, said a total of 6 units in Matimba and Letabo were out of service. He said 3 units were out because of boiler tube failures. Now, South Africa has been without scheduled power cuts for about 10 months. Eskom claims this is a result of structural improvements in the generation fleet and improved maintenance. Well, that's partially true. However, as far as having had no load shedding for 10 months, that's disingenuous. While Eskom has not announced load shedding, numerous communities have nonetheless suffered frequent load reduction. Was there a difference? Only in how widespread the absence of electricity is. In South Africa, load shedding is a nationwide power cut that occurs when the country's demand for electricity exceeds its supply. Load reduction is a localized power cut that occurs when a specific area's electricity demand exceeds the capacity of its equipment. In 2024, the state-owned utility provider Eskom managed to go just over 3 months without any load shedding. Strangely, this 3-month period occurred just in time for national elections in late May. Nothing to see here, folks. Just move right along. But only a matter of weeks after the May 29th national election, Eskom resorted to load reduction to keep the grid operational. At the time, Eskom went to the media to reassure folks that load shedding and load reduction are not one and the same. But when you lose power, especially when it's scheduled, it sure feels like your end of the national grid has been shut off. No? In July 2024, load reduction arrived with outages in multiple communities in several provinces. Eskom has multiple terms for what befalls you when it fails to deliver safe, reliable electricity. Load shedding, load reduction, load limiting, and load curtailment. In every case, the national electricity grid cannot deliver sufficient power to meet needs. So dress it up any way you like. Blame it on illegal connections, municipalities not maintaining infrastructure, or peak demand. Whatever manner Eskom chooses to pass the buck, the bottom line as a consumer is you have no electricity. Now, given the unfortunate reality that many poorly informed South Africans consider electricity to be a human right, especially lazy journalists and legacy media, it's shocking that the ANC government has overseen a dramatic collapse of what was once rated the best power company in the world only 2 decades ago. Eskom won the Power Company of the Year award at the 2001 Global Energy Awards in New York. 24 years later, that hardly seems plausible, but it's true, folks. Although the South African Constitution does not explicitly state that electricity is a human right, it is considered a basic municipal right. It's also a necessary condition for the exercise of what the Constitution considers other human rights, such as access to water, housing, and health care. Now, Robin Kopa said the latest round of load shedding was a temporary setback. He said Eskom had done everything possible to avoid load shedding. And a lot of people would be hoodwinked by that. I mean, after all, it's been months since we've officially had load shedding, but done everything possible? Really? Koji Senso? Well, except for perhaps preventive maintenance, capital upgrades, expanding power generation, or bringing retired generators back online. What about those things? Did you try those? In a 2010 Department of Energy presentation on the South African energy sector, Daniel Modise and Vania Mohotas clearly identified the problem coming down the pike. By 2025, South Africa would need over 40,000 megawatts of new generation capacity. That's 40 gigawatts. In 2010, Eskom had 42 gigawatts of generating capacity. So according to their projections, Eskom should be producing over 80 gigawatts to meet demand today. They're nowhere near that capacity. Eskom cannot feign ignorance nor a lack of funding. Between service fees, bailouts, price hikes, plenty of money has been available. But so has corruption, ineptitude, waste and abuse, as well as patronage hiring, all conspiring to undermine electricity generation and service delivery. Now, the truth of the matter is that Eskom is far too comfortable awaiting handouts from the United States and the European Union for the so-called just energy transition, instead of fulfilling its role to South Africans. The power cuts ironically come a day after the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, said that Eskom's electricity tariffs would increase by 12.7% beginning April this year. Now, it's well below the 36.1% they asked for, but they're delivering no power today. And just a few months down the road, they're going to jack the prices up almost 13%. South Africa gets most of its electricity from coal-fired power plants, yet the African National Congress is obsessively committed to the green energy revolution. Almost none of that can provide reliable baseload, which is what the country needs. 83% of its electricity comes from coal, and they don't like coal. Now, the return of load shedding should come as little to no surprise to South Africans. Nonetheless, it was still a bit of a shock to the system. It's summer in the Southern Hemisphere. Folks need electricity to deal with the warm temperatures to run their aircon. Well, for those of you who still have electricity, I hope you're able to watch this video. Thank you for your patronage. Be sure to hit the like button and leave a comment below. Eskom, more of the same. Failure. What say you, South Africa? Cheers.